Hey, how you guys doing? It's hump day, 27th of December. We're in that in-between phase between Christmas and the New Year, and everyone's taking it easy, so I figured I'd at least give you guys an opportunity to do some learning. I'm going to be working on a track today in Logic Pro, as you can see. This is the Logic Pro setup. I'm going to take you through my coloring, my process, my setup for my mixer, reference tracks, all that good stuff. And we're going to get right into drum and bass track. This is by Edson 808 or Ed 808. I forget the name he goes by as a producer, but pretty much we're looking at drum and bass. Garage, UK garage, drum and bass kind of style stuff. It has vocal samples, all that good stuff, chops in there, crazy drum breaks, all that. It's really fun, really energetic. We'll do a lot of tone shaping and distortion and yeah, fun compression artifacts, all that cool stuff. But before I get going, I'm gonna light up a candle because I need some vibes in the studio. So I got this nice lavender vanilla candle, which smells incredible. The guys at Music Hack shot it over to me for Christmas, so shouts to them. I'm gonna light this bad boy up. Ooh, I love fire. I'm such a pyro. All right, so let's get a candle going. Let's get the vibes right. Get that lavender. Here we go. All right. Who's in the house? We got Philippe. Good to see you, bro. You're always here. He's here to learn. All right, so Logic Pro users. Who's here using Logic Pro? Who's here doing drum and bass, UK garage style stuff? I want to know in the comments. And also, if you guys have any questions along the way, just drop them in the comments. I'm not going to talk too much through this one, besides up front, because I'm going to show you how I set things up, okay? So this is the session. Here's a reference track from the client, and he basically gave me a bunch of reference tracks. There was another one I liked here called Soli 5s. I thought this was pretty dope. So I'm just kind of like with references, I'm listening for the overall bass, how the drums are placed, volumes, shaping, all that kind of stuff, and paying attention to the style. Like, how is the style actually mixed, right? I'm pretty familiar with drum and bass, so this isn't like, oh, this is crazy, I've never heard this before. But I'm gonna play this reference here. All right, shit is pretty intense, and you guys will notice this is something I think you all should know about Logic Pro. When you see 0 and you see red, it's not clipping. Actually, Logic Pro signifies clipping at 0 when it's red like that, but that's actually not going over. So it's right at 0. It just does that as like a safety net. I don't know why. It's probably like Apple being, garage bandy. But if you notice on the track, it's orange, which this is what tells you it's orange here on the track, but it's red on the master. So don't let that fool you. That is not clipping. That is literally at 0 dB full scale. Okay. So that is a really good, indicator for me and the style that I'm going to be mixing, that they push it all the way to the limit. So you don't need to worry about getting too loud, right? So I'm not going to be worried about that as I'm mixing this one. So let's listen to kind of what I have so far as I bring in the drums and everything. I typically, with the routing, just to show you that real quick, I'm still kind of routing it, but I'll have the reference here and I have the drums. All these drums are in this like orange brown color. Okay. And the drums are going to go to bus 2. And you could see here there's also a bus 7 here, but that's because this is the drum master. Okay, I don't know how that got kind of blended in with that, but pretty much this is all the drums here minus this guy. Okay, so these are going to bus 2. If I go over here to bus 2, I can see my drum mix bus. My drum mix bus is all on. And then I have one of the NLS buses bypassed. I don't know why I bypassed it, but I just did. So that's going to bus 2. And then bus 4, it's going out of, which is going to be this drum master taken in bus 4, right? And then that goes to bus 7, which is all drums. Okay, so hopefully you understand that. So my drums going to a drum mix bus going to the drum master bus go to the all drums, and then the all drums go to bus 8, which is going to be my master augs. Okay, that's where all my mix stuff is going to end up, is at the master augs. Right now in the master augs, I don't have anything on here besides the master plan by Music Hack, and it's doing very, very, very little, and the output is set to negative 0.10 dB by default. Okay, so it just doesn't let it go over that, which is cool. It has a soft clipper, everything built in, input gain here, all that. I just have this on for now, right? This is like my safety. It's like my master, my limiter, right? So I don't get any overs when I'm playing stuff. All right, so that's my drums. And then the next thing I'll have is my bass and my sub bass and all my other basses. So anything that's a bass in here. This is a sub bass duplicate. I'll show you what I'm doing here with this sub bass. I'm just going to call this bass high because that's what this is. And then we have sub bass 2, sub bass 3, sub bass 4. Okay, so a bunch of different sub basses, and that's kind of the style of the drum and bass. Obviously, drum and bass. This is the bass part. All right, so these are going through bus 6, which bus 6, if I go over here, you will notice is my, I don't see it over here, actually, I'm sorry. Here's the sub bass, sub bass, sub bass, sub bass, sub bass. Okay, so we got to find bus 6. This is one reason why I prefer to mix and master in Pro Tools. Just the routing and the mixer and everything is just a lot easier to figure out. So bus 6 right here is the bass master, which I just need to color that this yellow so I can see it better. Okay, so bass master, that's R bass, UAD Shadow Hills, right? The black box analog design, R comp, Pro Q3, doing a little, rolling out. And then I have the limiter, the L1 at negative 0.5. And then I have a Pro Q3 just to even tame the low end more. So I never, one kind of like a rule of thumb, if you will, is to not add anything after your limiter unless you're cutting. Okay, so that's what that's doing. Dynamically EQing down that bottom end and doing some more filtering down. Okay, because plugins add low end, they add voltage. A lot of them add stuff, right? So if I take this limiter off, then I probably wouldn't need this extra cleanup or ducking at 116 and below. Okay, so this is just a little turn down the low end. That's all I'm doing. Okay, so that's the bass. And then let's see, we go to the vocals, which in this track they're vocal chops, they're vocal samples because it's drum and bass. Those are going to bus 9. Bus 9 is going to be my vocal mix bus, right? And then that goes to bus 10, which is the all vox, which then goes to bus 8, which is the master aux. Okay, so everything is going to be doing that. And then we haven't routed our synths yet, right? So here's how I would do this. I'm shift clicking, right? I'm grabbing all my synths. I'm going to stereo out, and I'm going to go to bus 11. Now I'm going to go to bus 11 over here, which it created, and I'm going to call this synth mix or instrument mix bus, okay? Instrument mix. Okay, and when I make a mix bus over here, I want to color it the same as what I have over here. So it's just really easy for me to find it. Okay, so I'm going to go here and color that blue. Now that instrument mix bus obviously needs to have an all instrument bus. And a lot of the times people are like, why are you doing that? Well, because if I do any sort of reverb sends from these synths, then I can make sure that those reverbs, the reverb returns of those synths, right, end up at the instrument mix or the all instrument bus, right? Because maybe I don't want to go through the mix process of what's going on the instrument mix inserts. Okay, so that's why we do the all buses. And it's also easy to just mute the all bus, the all instruments, and I kill all the reverbs, delays, any send returns, all the instruments, everything incorporated with the instruments all at once, so I can then just hear the drums and the bass and the vocals, right? So that's why I do it, and that's why most mixers do this, right? So all instruments is what I'm going to call this one. And this same thing, I'm just going to color this the same color, so that blue. All right, so I know that that's all instrument stuff. And then, of course, from the all instruments, we need to go to the master augs, okay? So you'll see that there's little labels next to everything with the arrows, right? That really helps in Logic Pro. It's going to help you find stuff. You can see bus 1, string bus, bus 2, drum mix, you know, all that. That's very, very important. And then you can see bus 8, master augs. So just click that, and then everything's going through this master augs. Now, if I mute this master augs, I should hear nothing when I hit play. Right? We see the faders moving, but we're not hearing anything, which is great. Unmute. Okay, everything's coming through the master augs. Cool. That's a great way to check your routing, is just mute your master augs. And if you hear like reverb returns or something, you know something's routed weird. Okay, and then the last thing we have is the effects. So these are all just like wind effects, impacts, risers, etc., right? So let's grab these and let's take them through an effects bus. So we'll go effects mix bus. Just call it effects mix. And then remember to color everything the same. So on this, we're going to make sure it's like this kind of lighter blue vibe. And then that goes to, I would actually take this out, the all instruments or the all drums bus. You know, I mean, either one of those is going to be fine because there's nothing really on those. It's just like an all bus. All right, so that's cool. And now that's already routed because it's going through all drums, which goes to the master augs. So cool. Very simple. Everything's routed. Now let's hear what we've done so far with the drums. So I'm going to go right into like the breakbeat sort of part. And here's the drum master here. It's very easy in Logic to just create a track from your augses. So for example, if I have Vox mix, right? I'm not going to see this Vox mix out on the arrangement window. Why? Because it's an augs, right? So I have all my audio tracks, MIDI tracks, etc. here. But if I want to add that augs tracks to the actual arrangement window, I need to hit X to go to the mixer. I need to go to Vox mix, right click on it, and I could say create track, or I think it's Control T or something like that, right? Now in here, I can see I have my Vox mix bus. You can also change this to be like, you know, a group of vocals or something, right? So it's easy for you to see like that's a vocal mix bus, right? Same thing here. When I go to my drum master here, I can right click on this and I can just go to like where drums are and find like a drum kit, right? There you go, drums. So I just know that that's the drum master. I like to put those at the bottom of all the drums. Now, a lot of people like to use things like track stacks and stuff in Logic. They'll go, yeah, right click, and then they'll create a track stack, right? Like this. And they go, yeah, I want to do a folder stack or a summing stack. You know, this is easier for me. It's super easy. Then I can just fold it up and it's super clean. I hate that. I absolutely hate that because I want to just see everything laid out. And that's why I color everything. And that's why I name it. And that's why I have a drum master augs. It's just my workflow. And also, if I have a drum mix folder stack, right, it's going to make this like drum mix bus here, which is, you know, I just don't want that. So I want to see everything laid out. I want to be able to see my drums right away. You know, that's the shakers, main break. I don't need to unfold stacks and stuff. You know, I want to just work and be fluid. But yeah, everybody works differently. So do whatever you want to do. All right, so under this sub bass and these bass parts, same thing. I'll go here. I'll go to my bass master, right click, create track. There you go. Now I'm just going to kind of do that for all my parts. So I got Vox mix. Here's the synths, right? At the bottom of the synths. Let's go to the synth mix bus. Instrument mix right here. And this time we'll hit Control T, right? Control T. Bada bam. Now we got that guy. Okay, and then the effects here. Last thing we're doing here is the effects are actually routing to the all drums. So we're all good there. Okay. But if you wanted to submix the effects, like let's say you want to add compressors, EQs, whatever, to all the effects at once, it might be a good idea to grab all your effects stuff and go through a different bus for your effects mix. And actually I did that, I'm sorry. Just talking so much, but so I have the effects mix going to the all drums, so let's make that track as well. Control T. Hopefully that didn't confuse you. So effects mix, cool. Instrument mix, cool. I can right click here and I can go to like a group of instruments. Let's just find keyboards or something, right? And yeah, something like that. There you go. Instrument mix. Effects mix. We can go in here and go to sound effects and go, I don't know, whatever you think is fun. There you go. Bam, effects mix. So now I have like, you know, all my stuff routed, everything's cool. And I have everything muted that I haven't got in the mix yet. Okay. So that's typically how I work. And you guys work however you want. Do you go live with Pro Tools? All the time, my man. All the time. I mainly mix and master in Pro Tools. Today I'm working in Logic because the client wanted me to work in Logic. So, you know, I just like to take care of the clients. So whatever my client needs and wants is what I'm going to do. I can work in any DAW, you know. I know Pro Tools and Logic Pro very well, but I also know FL Studio. I know Ableton. I know Reason, Cubase. Figure out any DAW. Been doing this a very long time. They're all pretty much the same. The only thing is you kind of slow down because you don't have the key commands down as well, right? So let's pop this in. Right now, I'll show you what I've done so far because I do have some plugins on here, right? I have some stuff going on these drums. And I have a duplicate of these drums. Right? Why? You know what I'm saying? So let's kind of go through these and let's listen. All right, pretty boring, right? It's just because the ARP synth and everything else isn't in there. But let's go to a point where the bass comes in. So we have like a sub bass here with the drums. All right, so what we've done here is the main break, I've duplicated it, and then I've swept out pretty much everything just so I can focus on the kick drum. And then I sent that kick drum to a sidechain so that I could sidechain that to the soothe here. Okay, so the key input here on this is bus 5, right, from the main break duplicate. So this really, all this is right here is kick sidechain. That's it, right? So now if I listen to this by itself, it's just going to be like a filtered out kick. Now, in order to do that, you have to make sure that the fader is pre-send. So it's pre-fader. All right, the send is pre-fader, I'm sorry. So I'm basically sending that duplicate off the fader before the fader, right? Regardless of the fader, pretty much. And then that is going to this sub bass here, right? It's getting the key input on the soothe. Very, very basic. So you'll see it as it's hitting here. Right, and that just, so the drums can stay there, right? So we don't have competing frequencies in the low end. Very, very important that you don't have a bunch of low end building up on itself. That's so, so important. So let's start popping other stuff in here. But before I do that, remember this is drum and bass. So drum and bass, obviously that's like the most important thing in this whole track, and shaping that drum and bass and making sure that that's really dope. So on the master augs, I want to add a couple things. I want to add the first thing I'm going to do is a compressor. And the compressor I want to add here is the Manly variable mu. And the reason I really like the Manley variable mu is because it has awesome harmonics. I mean, it's a very, very underrated compressor. And a lot of people don't understand how good it is. Let's just put it that way, because I really think that. So if I go to the Manley variable mu, it's going to be defaulted like this, right? So very, very basic. It is a tube compressor. That's what a variable mu is. Variable mu is a tube, okay? And it's a limiter compressor. So we can turn on the limiter or the compressor. So you have right here, you go limit or compress, right? I'm just going to compress, and I want to drive the input. And this is actually usually pretty good, like one click to the right. I think that that's a pretty good vibe there. And then I'll mess with the threshold to where this needle is just barely tickling, because really all we're trying to do is get the tone of the compressor. We're not trying to really compress hard with this. That's not the idea of what I'm trying to do here. Okay, and then the attack, for this kind of style, I can go probably a little bit slower, like a little bit slowed down, but we'll just listen. Like that's the most important thing, is that we listen. And then the recovery can be pretty fast probably, because it's like it's 170 BPM. So it's pretty intense. So variable mu is going to just give us a lot of push and a lot of harmonics. So let's hit this real quick. All right, so let's bypass it in and out. You hear that mid-range just kind of pop more, right? Even the low end, you get that harmonic structure from the tubes, which I just love. I love that saturation on the variable mu. Don't get addicted to, it's very, very easy to get addicted to pushing that input because it just sounds so good, right? It's like harmonics and it feels so much louder and just more intense. But remember, we're making a mastering chain. We don't want to rely 100% on this, okay? So the next thing, next plugin I want to put on my master chain is probably some sort of EQ, just to give me some sort of, ability to clean things up if I need to, right? I guess that's the best way to put it. So on this, I really like the plugin Alliance, the BX Digital V3. And this is just like a go-to for a lot of people, I think, on the master chain. And this is just a way also to give me some gain structure if I need to. If I'm pushing too hard, I could take the gain in and out. But I'm going to hit this with a little bit of stereo widening. I love the stereo widening on this, but I never go past 120%, right? Because then it just sounds too wide. And you kind of start to lose the middle. And that's really important, is you don't want to really lose the middle. Okay, and then the mono maker, I want to put this maybe at like 30 to 40 hertz. This is pretty low rumbly sub stuff. So I want to keep that sub in the middle, just the really subby stuff. And then here, I like to turn this on, and I like to just kind of sweep out up to about 21 hertz. This needs a lot of low end. So I'm not trying to like roll this out and cut out that low end. I'm just trying to kind of turn it down. Because this is 12 dB per octave slope, you're not really cutting at 21. Right? Like it has a slope to it. So you're turning down at 21 and you're probably, not cutting out everything all the way down. So you still have that sub stuff. Okay. If you want to use something where you're like really cutting stuff out and cutting things down, like you're like, oh, I need to filter out, use something like Isotopes EQ and hit it with a steep shelf or a steep curve there. Like you could go to like 24, 36, 48 dB per octave. And then also the Bax Digital, the Dangerous Audio one, the Bax one, that one's really good at cutting out. So here, I'm just going to try and find it just so I can show you Yeah, dangerous backs EQ. So this backs EQ is really good at cutting things. So, and you can see it starts at 12. So that's 12 hertz, right? So you can really tighten things up with this if you're having really crazy low end problems. Or a fab filter EQ or something that's like you can get really tight on it. But be careful because you will get phase shifting. Not that it really matters too much down at the low end because you just don't hear it. You more feel it, but it will affect the octaves of that. So like, for example, if I started going to like 30 dB or 30 hertz, it'll affect 60 hertz and 120 and all that. Okay, so just be really careful with these kind of EQs. But if you really have a problem with your low sub stuff, these are kind of the EQs you want to use, like a backs or something that has a tighter slope, like isotope or something, okay? I just find the BX Digital V3 to be much more musical. It's just going to be a musical EQ. This is a mono and stereo, so we're doing mid-side. All right, so in here, I'm not going to touch anything because I don't have anything to touch yet. I'm just putting it on, I'm widening, and I'm cutting out, right? Just a little bit. And then the next processor I probably want to put on here is something that's going to give me maybe more clarity, or maybe I want to add something that's going to give me more gain in it. Or for this kind of vibe, I kind of want like a distortion, right? Saturation, more color, right? These kind of tracks love color. So it's okay to add color to these. So I'm going to go to Plugin Alliance, and I'm going to use this really fun one that I've been fucking with. Elemental PPP Plugin Alliance. Sorry, I got so many plugins. It is the... I just always forget what all these things are. I'll find it. Is it the Diesel? No. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. It's gonna like hit me when I actually see it. Here we go, saturate. So this guy here, this one's dope. So this is really powerful though, and it can be really heavy-handed, just so you know. So you have like drive, total harmonic distortion, mix, you know, so you can mix it in. And then you got this magic knob, which is really dope. I won't go through like everything here, but as you can see, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this thing, and it saturates pretty crazy. And there's some presets here if you want to do like a subtle burn, mid burn, warm glue, something to start with, you know, a touch of color, you know, stuff like that. So just see what it does, and then listen and go, okay, maybe I need to take down the drive, you know. This mix knob, it's very like subtly mixed in. So, you know, let's just listen to this, and I'll flip through some things just to see what we can do with the drums and give them a little bit more color. Right, so that's a pretty intense processor. If you want something that's a little bit more subtle on the master bus, because that's super intense, I would go with something like the, let's see here, the Vertigo VSM3. This is a great one as well. So I'm just showing you like different saturators to give you more color, and they saturate differently, right? Like they use different things to saturate. Like this is a FET crusher and a zener, harmonic zener. So like we have a tube and we have a FET, a field effect transformer, right? So these are going to be, or field effect transistor, I'm sorry. So these are going to give you different colors and different harmonics. Second order harmonics, third order harmonics, okay? So a good preset to start with on this would be like mid-side master, right? And then what I like to do is maybe open up the shape. which is a filter. This is a filter. It's basically filtering out like the low end, right? Like, so if I open it all the way up, it's going to be full scale, full spectrum. And then this is going to be low pass, right? Right? So think about it like that. And then the drive here and the level, and then this is on low, and that's in the middle. Okay, so if I have that in the middle, it's going to be focusing on the low end, and this is going to be on the low end. You could do the mids, you could do the high mids, you could do the high, you could do full, which would be everything, right? Full spectrum of frequencies. But we're going to focus on the low, and then you also got this filter where you bring it down a little bit as well. So if you want more of the punch of like a beater or something to be distorted, you want to open this up. If you want just like the low and the low sub stuff to be distorted, you bring this down and you filter it, okay? And then the total harmonic distortion mix, I actually like this just like right up the middle. So I like it at like 50% or so. And then I like the drive around 50% as well, but I pay attention to the lights, and I also listen, obviously. Listening is more important than anything. So this is a good setting, I think, for a starting point for the low and in the mids. And then you can also see here, like style, you have soft and hard. So you can hard clip style where it's like really clipping the FET, or you can soft clip it, right? Where it's just starting to harmonically distort it. I think for the low end, soft is better. Okay. And then on here, I like to go to the mids because I like the mid-range saturation on this. Same thing. I'm going to filter down. So I'm not letting all the mids through. I'm more like filtering in down to like maybe 3K, 2K, right? And I'm saturating the mids from, let's say, 400 to 2K, right? So that's the idea there. All right, drive, same thing. I'm going to just kind of turn that down. And then the level, I'm going to bring that up a little bit. And then the total harmonic distortion, I'll bring that at about 50% there. And then remember, this is in the sides. So I'm adding the mid distortion and harmonics in the sides. Now, you're not going to hear much of that because this is just drum and bass right now. But we're going to set this so that we have just a beginning setting here. And this sounds like this. Right? Pretty colorful, right? So you got to be pretty careful with this stuff. But for now, I think that's like a maybe. So I'm going to bypass it, right? And then instead of like, not doing anything else here, I actually, I'm going to leave the rest of the master untouched, and I'm going to start bringing in other elements of the mix. And then I'm also going to pay attention to what my master plan is doing. I'm really not very cranked here. But let's look at like what we're getting for luffs, right? And see where it's hitting. So we're literally right around -11. We got ourselves a lot of headroom here, which is great. That's what we really want because we don't have all the elements in. So I don't like want to master like really push the master. I want to get most of the volume from the mix and the mix buses. That's why I have a drum mix and a drum master bus and all that stuff, right? So that I can kind of pre-chew it. All right, so that's what we got for now on that stuff. Let's start to bring in some of this other stuff. So I typically start with the really rhythmic stuff. So like I have an ARP synth. I can see that's going the whole time. Let's pop that into the mix because... You know what I'm saying? We want to hear what is happening the whole time. We don't want to just hear like a crash or like a random sound that happens. We want to get all the rhythm instruments in first, okay? All right. Yo, what's good? What's good? Moses, what's up? It's good to see you. Mr. Prophet, please drop gems. I'm here for you. You humble me. All right, let's pop in this ARP. Now remember, that's getting fed by the sidechain, and it's making sure that the kick and the drums aren't ever, being toppled by another thing that's in that low and that sub. So that's what Soothe is doing on this ARP synth as well. The ARP synth is kind of boring. It just sounds kind of boring. So I want to fuck with it a little bit. I think maybe, something fun. I just want to kind of sound design a little bit. First things first, though, I want to pop on just an EQ to just kind of get rid of this thing that I'm hearing in it that's kind of clouding the 808 distortion and stuff, right? So that's kind of where my head is right away on this. But that doesn't mean that when I start affecting it, it won't change. So, this is kind of like a, do stuff, try stuff. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, try this, try that. We're kind of painting right now. We're throwing paint at the wall. All right, so just messing with it, right? Like I want the mids to be more on the sides here so it can feel more full. But I don't want that really annoying like 1K area just being like right in the middle. Like that's obnoxious to me. I think it'll be obnoxious to the listener. I kind of feel like it could be more musical, right? So just bypassing these two plugins and hearing it in and out. It also gives it more dimension when you put the mids in the side, right? I love that with synths. I always try to put the mids into the sides of the synth, like from 500 to 1K or so. It's like just magic. It thickens the mix up, and then like any reverbs or tails that it has falls behind it and kind of like gets into the center. It just sounds cool. Like that's very simple mid-side EQing. That's all we're doing there. All right. And if we want to go a little bit further with this, we could do something fun like I love this, is it audio thing? No, baby audio. Okay. So there's this magic switch. So if I blend this magic switch in, this might be cool too. Kind of like a chorusing effect. Just instant vibe, right? And just to, like, I notice it gets louder when I turn the magic switch on. So just kind of take the fader back down a little bit, right? So we don't have that just really up front, right? Because that's kind of annoying. So, and then I also want to maybe mess around with like magic switch and then the Pro Q3 maybe? Like, is that a cool idea? That's pretty dope, right? So it just gives it more dimension. It feels bigger. It feels like it's taking up more space, like front to back, side, left and right. And then if you want to tuck it, like let's say we want to push it back in the mix, just a touch. Like I want it to just kind of sit a little bit back. It doesn't need to be so intensely up front, right? So let's make this mix feel Let's open it up. That's what I like to do. I love opening up mixes because I find that a lot of producers don't know how to do that. So that's why they hire a mixing engineer, right? So one thing I want to do here right after the Synth too, real light compression, right? And one of my go-tos obviously is going to be the Waves R-Comp. I mean, I don't know who, like, this is maybe the best compressor that's ever been made, period. It's just simple to use, it sounds good, and it can sound like different compressors, which I love. So we'll go opto, smooth. We're going to attack this pretty fast, and then we'll release, you know, fairly fast too. I'm going to go like 10 milliseconds or so. And then I'm going to go like 4-to-1 on this, or 3-to-1, somewhere around here, right? And let's just kind of like tickle the tops. So dope how it just kind of like grabs it and puts it in the mix. You know what I mean? Instead of it being like, it's like, it gets really focused. So that's what compression's used for, man. Like I use compression like that all the time. If you want more of that focus, you use a higher ratio, right? Go 4-to-1, 3.5-to-1, 6-to-1, right? Because you're saying for every 3.96 dB, let one through. That's what it is, all right? So I'm just letting, it's more of a brick wall. That's all we're doing. If you want to open up the compressor a little bit more, you go 2-to-1, you go 1.8-to-1, right? Then you're just kind of like, you know, fizzling the top, right? Because for every 2.28 dB, let one through. So that's like 50% or something, right? But if I go 4-to-1, I'm like letting through 25% of it, right? So it's just a matter of control. That's what the ratio is, the threshold. These all work together, attack, release. You have to understand compression. You got to study it. You got to listen, fuck with it, listen, fuck with it, listen, right? Understand why it's doing what it's doing. If you want to just like tickle it, you go like this, right? Listen how much more open it sounds at 1.8 versus 4, okay? 4 is going to be tight, right? 1.8 is going to be still loose. It's going to loosen up on the compression. So I hear it mainly in the high mids, right? The high mids are more open. The reverb and stuff is more open on the sound, whatever the effect he has on the synth, it's more open. So it has more space. It's like, and then when you go 4-to-1, 6-to-1, it's going to go, it's almost like filtering that top high mid stuff. Okay, so that's really important to understand about compression. I like 1.8. I like 2-to-1. I think that sounds really good because it keeps it open. But if I want to control it just a bit more, I can use the threshold and compress more. Okay, so let's try that. So that's pretty dope. And then I wanna make sure that this bass is really like coming through, because the bass, the sub has to be hidden, you know? So let's get into this bass a little bit. I knew there was something up there. I was like, what? That doesn't sound right. It needs to be really compressed. I don't know why, but every time this UAD shit, man, it always asks me to initialize it. It's driving me crazy with that shit. So I'm sweeping this out, but now listen with the compression, because I'm compressing the hell out of this. I want it to stay put, right? So I'll show you what I'm doing with the 1176 on the high top. Now I want a little bit more mid-range out of this break, and I think the reason being is just the idea of it, right? So I don't want to do that by just EQing the shit out of it. I want to use harmonics through various means, right? So this is already going through a bunch of harmonics, and it's giving it some vibe, but I still feel like the mid-range is lacking, like it's not punching through, right, on the drums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a parallel compression on the drums, this main break. I'm going to send 100% to it. We're going to call this drums P comp. And this is going to give us more thick drums as well, right? Couple options here. I like to sweep before I compress, right? So like, for example, I only want to focus a certain range of these drums. So I'm going to go up to, I don't know, 50 or so. And I don't want all the hi-hats and all the trash up top. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go down to maybe 37 or so. Okay. I want to maybe push like this area, the 1K to 3K area. Okay. So I don't really know what that is yet, but I do know that this is a parallel compression, right? So let's go in here and let's grab a compressor that is going to give us some color and some vibe. And I think the Goodhertz Wolf compressor is really good for this. And it also has like a lo-fi mode, which can add some more stuff to it, some more kind of distortion, harmonics, etc. I'm going to leave it at 0%. I'm going to blend it in and see what happens. The Wolf, I like to go like 80% or so. And then the compression will go 100%. All right. And then the wow, I don't want any wow on there. All right. So that's just kind of an effect. It's like a wow and flutter from a tape machine, right? Turn the noise off. Don't want extra noise. That has plenty of noise in it. And then remember, the drums parallel compression needs to go to the drum, all drums, okay? Because we don't want it to go through the drum mix, the drum master, all those chains. This is a parallel compression, so we want it to meet at the all drums. Another reason why you make all buses for things, right? So now we have drum parallel compression. Let's start to blend this in. It says 0 right now. All right, so that sounds like shit because it's out of phase. So right away, you hear that doesn't sound right. It sounds like it's filtering the drums. So this is an issue when you start to put through like mix, drum master, etc. So you got to be really careful with that. You can't think, okay, there's going to be no phase. So you're going to have to give and take, right? So in this case, I have to give away the fact that this is going to have to hit with the drum mix and the saturation and the plugins on the drum master. So I'm going to try to go through the drum master first. And if that fixes the problem, great. If not, we have to go through the drum mix bus with this as well. So let's try it out. Let's give it a shot. Still sounds like it's filtering. So let's go through the drum mix. Unfortunately, that's okay. We'll still get the effect we're looking for. Weird how all the low end came back, right? So it was just having a phase issue with going through those buses. So you got to be really aware of that shit. You got to listen Always use your ears more than anything else. Trust your ears, right? Like if I started sending that, I'm like, oh, that must be better because I got a compressor on there and it's a parallel, you know? Nope. Right? So, yeah, so we're taking both these through the drum mix bus. Now let's start to get the color I'm looking for, right? And also get rid of any chunk that is coming through on this, which could be a lot of things, but for now I'm just going to kind of mess with the compressor. Isn't it funny when we bypass that, how thin-dicked that drum sounds? You're like, oh, that's what we had? That sounds like shit. So, yeah, just like a parallel compression, man, it can really do wonders. Just sounds so much better. Like, it's just thicker and there's just a lot more to it. So you hear also the lo-fi, what it's doing, it's very interesting, is changing the timbre of the drums. So we're getting like it's like an EQing, right? Because we're paralleling that in and that lo-fi, we can start to use that as an EQ. Like maybe you want the drums to be brighter or you want them to be more pointy at 2.5K or 1.5K or, you know what I mean? We just kind of sweep through this lo-fi. I'll show you what that's doing. Pretty cool. I like it. And it's just adding more oomph to everything. And another thing we can do is hit it with full everything and then EQ afterwards, right? So that's another thing. You know, compressors react really differently when you feed them full on information and complex waveforms, right? So a compressor really reacts differently to low end than it does to high end, than it does to mids. So if you let it just react to the full spectrum of the drum break, it's going to do different shit. So always try things like compressor before EQ, EQ before compressor, flip between them, and use your ears. Just figure out what you like. There's no right or wrong answer. Like, you know, I think social media has kind of fucked up the art of mixing, right? Because people are like, you can't do that with that. You're like, oh, you can do whatever you want to do. If it sounds good, do it. If you got 84 plugins on something and it sounds super dope, cool. Nobody needs to know that you used 84 plugins to get there. You know what I mean? Like, who gives a shit? Nobody cares. You know, these plugin police, like social media weirdos that don't actually even do this shit for real. Like, they don't make their money doing this shit. They make their money off brand deals and like social media posting. So don't worry about it. Do whatever you want to do, right? So let this hit everything. Let the Wolf compressor like really, you know, like do crazy shit with it, and then filter this and see what that sounds like. You might get a completely different tone. I much prefer the EQ after the compressor. It also gives us more control, right? So now I can mess around with boosting, cutting, what's happening on that return of that compression. So check this out. Let's actually just hear the compressor by itself, that channel. I'm just showing you how much you can affect the sound. I'm just messing around with the EQ. It's not something that I think I'll keep, right? But I'm just showing you like, this is how much you can mess around with this sound and change the timbre. And I think that that's really, really fun and very, very powerful. All right, so what I'm hearing is the shaker. I'm trying to leave room for that shaker, and I'm listening to the, like, what's happening with the drums, the bass, the shaker, and then having that sub bass. Like, you know, like I want to like make everything feel like it's one, right? Like it's one thing. That's what mixing is to me. It's like make a world for everything that it all fits together in. So right now the shaker is able to be a shaker on the top. But going back to the break and going back to the idea of the parallel compression, if I start to let that top end back in on the parallel compression, listen to what happens to the shaker. Just use your ears on the shaker right now. Right, so the shaker's definition is important to the pacing of the track, right? It's like 16th notes. It's like really fast. 16th notes at 170. That's really fast, right? So it's just like going. And if I start letting in the jangle of all that shit, like more and more with the hi-hats on the drums, all of a sudden it just sounds like it's all just phasing on each other, you know? It starts to collapse a little bit. So that's what I'm trying to do, is make sure that the shaker doesn't lose its pace, because this shaker is like really nice on the 16th. Right, and I might want that to be even cleaner. Like I might want that to be less chunky, because I can hear a lot of low stuff in it right in here, right? So let's just make it really, so it gets really definitive on those transients. Dope. Now we have like just a little bit more definition on that like fast-paced stuff, right? Another thing for the shaker, like that I think could be interesting, is some sort of like width change, like so that it's like, I just want to like put it somewhere differently. I don't know why it's obnoxious to me a little bit. Maybe it's too bland. It's like when you're eating the mashed potatoes, you know what I mean? And you throw the gravy on. Like the shaker is like the gravy, and the gravy it's not salted enough, you know? Like I'm like, it's just not, it's not fitting with everything else, right? It just feels kind of stock shaker loop, right? So I want to mess around with a couple things. One thing I would try right away is just to try to put it in a different space. So going down to True Verb, because another just like killer go-to plugin for dimension, right? So going into True Verb, I'm going to give myself just some, basically like, here's the size of your room, right? And then here is your early reflections, like where you want to put those early reflections. So basically I'm tucking it back or I'm putting it forward, right, in the mix. I don't want to use reverb at all. I don't want the tail. I just want the early reflections on, okay? And let's just listen to what this does if I turn this on. So that just gives me a little bit more vibe. I'm turning the early reflections up so I can really hear the splash of the early reflections, but no reverb tail, right? You have the direct on and you have the early reflections on. If I turn the direct down, you're only going to hear the early reflections. Like, just so you're really aware, even with the early reflections all the way down, it's only at negative 24 dB. So you're still hearing the early reflections. And with a high end sort of thing, like a shaker, this is really important that you turn these up so you can actually hear them because it's so fast. But with something like with mid-range and stuff that kind of hangs a little bit more, you don't have to turn these early reflections up very much, you know, because that can actually get kind of splashy and weird. But leave the direct fully up and just start to, you know, you can even change them. Like you could say, hey, I want less direct and more early reflections. It'll tuck the shakers back further, right? Check it out. It's almost like a slap delay, like a slap echo, right? You got it at like 30 seconds or something, even like in between, like a 48th or something, right? Little triplet vibe. So check this out in the mix now. Let's see if that made it more interesting. Just kind of tucked it in the mix a little bit more, which I think is cool. So moving on, another thing I like to do is just kind of like cut things before they come in like that, right? So you can kind of just see where things start to come in. I think that kind of helps me mix. It's like in a linear fashion from left to right, you know, chronologically, if you will. So I could see like, oh, the next thing, I have this ultimate seduction thing. I have the vocals. But this is another one, like this mentasm synth. Like this needs to come in. Like I need to hear this. Like what is this doing? Right? So right away, you're like, that's really in your face. It doesn't feel part of the mix. So this is why the dimension, the early reflections, the chorusing, things like that, it's so important for the mix. It gives so much dimension and texture and layers. And, you know, I just love that. I think that that's really how I love to mix is front to back, bottom to top. left to right. You know, this is just like part of the joy of mixing, right? So without like having to go EQ compress, because like a lot of people, they just first thing they reach to EQ compress, EQ compress, EQ compress, reverb, right? Without doing that, again, you could just go to your true verb and you could set up, like I have presets in here where I have like tuck the synth back. There you go. Let's listen to this tucked back. Right? Very simply, it just puts it into the mix, which just feels good. And that way, like, we can have a foreground and a background and leave the foreground for things that are very, you know, ready for the foreground. Meaning like, let's see, the vocal chops, right? Like we have a vocal chop here. So this vocal chop could be much more in the foreground rather than the background. Right, the ultimate seduction could like come up front, right, and have maybe some effects that are joining the other instruments in the back and giving more dimension, but as a throw, like the ultimate seduction, you know, like make that shit happen. It's going to make your mix a lot more interesting, more exciting. So on this, for this ultimate seduction, for example, we really want to get the vocal chops in ASAP because we don't want to have all these synths like really important and spending all this time mixing and shaping these synths when we have these vocal chops and they may be more important to the mix. So I have this going through a vocal mix bus. I have the FG Gray SSL style compressor, right? Little radiator, and then I have a Pro Q3, and that's all that's doing, right? So let's see, because I think I'm hitting this compressor pretty hard. That's what it sounds like to me. Great. Sounds awesome to me for now, but I think I want to mess around with this being a little bit more interesting, right? This vocal is just kind of boring to me. So let's try maybe some distortion stuff. I think that might be fun, right? And that's going to also give me harmonics. So harmonic analog, saturator, soft tube, one of my go-tos for sure. So here, let's make it less dynamic. Solid state's pretty good, but I really like this modern vibe on vocals. Let's drive it. And yeah, we'll keep the character there. I don't know. And then we'll try to, we'll pre or post filter it. Let's just hear it.
The ultimate seduction. 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 The ultimate seduction.
Right, that just makes it pop. It's very, very simple. There is no space to this vocal right now, so it's very dry. which, you know, we need to kind of like make that more interesting and exciting. First thing I would do on that is to just send it to a vocal widening bus, right? So very, very simple. I'm going to call this Vox wide, right? And I already have like presets for this shit, right? I go into vocals, and let's go to background vocal bus. No, that's not what I'm looking for. No. Parallel. No. Fat boy Vox. All right, so Fat boy Vox. And then the vocal wide obviously needs to meet up with the vocals on the all vocals bus, right? So let's let that open. That's the studio rack with the REQ 4, the doubler 2, and as you can see on the doubler 2, we're pushing the sides up and the middle down, and then the S1 imager to give it even more width, okay? Very, very simple. And then we're going to take that out to the vocal mix, all Vox, okay? And now let's just blend in some of that to give it some width.
The ultimate seduction. 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 The ultimate seduction.
Right? And you see what that's doing. We're just bypass it in and out. You're going to hear it kind of like get wider and splashier on the sides. Just makes it feel like it has more space to it. You know, and we're obviously like having to like, we're going to need to gain structure stuff. We can't just like let everything be so loud. That's going to be obnoxious as fuck.
The ultimate seduction.
So on that note, if we take the vocals and we go to the vocal mix bus, right? Like here, and that's going to go to the all vocals bus, right? When we go to the all vocals bus, remember that's going to be all of our vocal effects and everything's going to match us at that all vocals right here. So what we might want to do is send from here to a sidechain, right? And I'll show you why. So let's say bus 16, and we're going to call this Vox sidechain kill, right? And we're going to take that down and mute it. That's just because Logic makes an aux return no matter what when you make a send. But now we know that bus 16 is our send. Now we can go to the all instruments bus, right? And we can hit it with whatever we want. We can go OEK Soothe 2, right? Or a multiband compressor or an EQ or whatever the fuck we want. But I'm going to use Soothe 2 on this idea here, right? So OEK, here we go, bam. And then we're going to go to the sidechain here, and we're going to grab that bus, which is the, what was it, bus 16, right? So bus 16, input on the sidechain, turn on the sidechain, and then let's go to like the mid-range, right? Right here where we're really poking the vocal out, and we can focus in on that area, and that's going to just duck down on anything that we put it on, right? So now, right now we have it on the all instruments. We can also put it on the drums, the all drums, right? So all drums right here, option, drag that down. And now what it's going to do is duck that area every time it hits, you know, the vocal hits. It's just going to duck the instruments in that area, in that frequency range.
The ultimate seduction. The ultimate seduction.
One thing you always want to make sure is that you're actually sending something. So option click, I'm going to send now 100% of that all Vox.
The ultimate seduction. The ultimate seduction. The ultimate seduction. The ultimate seduction.
Right now when that vocal hits, it just kind of ducks that area so the vocal can come in and do its thing, right? the ultimate seduction, and then just kind of ducks that shit. Very simple thing to do. Option, drag that over because now I have it set right, and it's going to do it to the drums as well. We might not want it to happen on the drums, to be honest.
The ultimate seduction.
So as we push things to the limit on like this style of music, you have to make sure that you're trading off things, right? Because we haven't even pushed that hard on the master bus or any of the mix buses or anything. So, once you start really pushing, there's no way you're going to have all these frequencies just jamming the whole time. It's damn near impossible. And you can hear that in the reference too. Like you can hear how much sidechain stuff is going on to make sure that this mix stays really, really fucking loud, but also that it's like super clean sounding, right? So it's just a lot of multiband compression, dynamic EQing. Like just listen. Right? Like every time those drums hit, like everything's just going, it's pumping really hard. And that's the only way you can really get this drum and bass sound to really work. And I think the arrangement wise, there's way too much high end and lots of stuff that we can really start to filter out and automate in this mix. I'm just trying to make those things work as fast as possible up front. And then modularly, I'll just go back to them, So like right now it's about like, okay, how do I get all these things moving and sounding in the same world? And then I can go and filter and change the position of stuff, because these kind of tracks have different, different sections. Like here you have an ARP synth, and again, you have a different break here and different sub bass, and then you have another break here and sub bass, and then you have a whole different thing here. So all these are like little sections that you got to treat differently, which can make the mix a lot more interesting when you do it this way, right? So work on one section, get it dialed in, go to the next section, make it dialed in.
The ultimate seduction. The ultimate seduction. The ultimate seduction.
Right, start getting into like filtering things and making them sound more like effects that like pop and like have their place in the mix, sort of thing. But anyway, you guys, I'm out of time on the live stream here. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and if you did, please share it, subscribe to the channel, show some love, throw a thumbs up, drop a comment, all that good stuff. This is like just me taking probably 2 to 3 times longer on a mix, because I'm like talking through the whole thing and doing it live stream. But it's more fun for me to do it this way. I always love, teaching and showing people everything. But yeah, this is like a lot. It's a tedious process. I will be just like going and messing with stuff and tweaking stuff and going back and forth and dialing in the tone and the sound of the record. And that's just kind of part of the game. Mixing is that. It's putting together the puzzle. And once you have the puzzle like together, then you can do the fun stuff, and you can do the delay throws and the cool saucy shit. But right now I'm just kind of like putting it together. I'm just figuring out the pieces and talking through it. So hopefully it was really helpful. Appreciate you guys coming through. Good seeing some of you. Like it's dope to see like some of you just like show up all the time, which is awesome. Yeah, small moves is everything. It's just a lot of small moves. So the faster you can move, like you're like, oh, tweak, go back. It's modular too. If you're gonna like affect something, don't think you're gonna affect that and then leave it and then do the next thing. That's not how mixing is. Mixing is like you're putting the puzzle pieces together, and then someone comes up and they like break the puzzle again, and then you're like, oh, I remember where the pieces were, but maybe I can try this to get there again. It's not like I put this piece and that piece and that piece and that piece and then they all go together. It is like a puzzle though. So you're like, maybe you make the borders, right? And then you start to fill in the pieces and then the picture starts to come together. But anyway, good seeing y'all. And please share the show, drop likes, show love. That's very, very important to the channel and the community and my ability to keep live streaming and giving you guys game. All right. See ya. Have a good hump day.